walking across the top of a rock system and the water will disappear underneath you.
Bubbling brooks, cascading waterfalls, and deep pools of crystal clear water surging between the spaces and crevices of gigantic granite boulders surrounded by lush green rainforest. This breathtaking paradise is known as the Boulders to the thousands of unsuspecting tourists that visit it every year. But to the informed locals who know of its legend, this scenic spot has another, more notorious name.
These stunning pools may look inviting, but they're deceptively dangerous.
The washing machine. It's a peculiar name that many outsiders like James Bennett of Tasmania would have appreciated knowing. At least knowing the name and what it implies might have made a huge difference before Bennett decided to venture into its depth completely unaware of what was waiting for him underneath.
I wouldn't have gone into it in a lifetime.
On November 30th, 2008, James Andrew Bennett, a 23-year-old Tasmanian native, came to the Boulders as a tourist. He was an experienced swimmer, a sub-lieutenant in the Australian Navy who had just been stationed aboard one of their minesweepers, HMAS Norman. That sunny afternoon, Bennett traveled independently to the Babinda Boulders, a famous tourist spot in Babinda. This is a small rural town south of Cairns, located in Far North Queensland, Australia. Babinda is known as one of the wettest cities in Australia. This place holds the Australian record for over 4,000 millimeters of rain per year. These heavy downpours combined with the rugged mountainous terrain is the main reason for the many spectacular waterfalls and underground tunnels found in the area. In addition, 3 tributaries flow off Mount Bartle and converge at the rocky base of the mountain to form a fast-flowing creek surrounded by giant boulders. This crystal-clear water meanders, streaks, and forms around the rocks, forming a myriad of natural swimming holes both large and small, deep and shallow. Together, this creek and the swimming holes are known as the Boulders. Every year, tens of thousands of tourists backpack their way to Babinda, which in the country's native Aboriginal tongue means mountain, a fitting name for the small settlement situated in the foothills of Queensland's 2 highest peaks, Mount Bartle and Mount Bellenden Kerr. Bennett met 3 of his friends, Adam Farley, John Twala, and Soy Twala, at the entrance of the Boulders where the car park and the picnic area were located. From there, they slowly trekked down a path known as the Devil's Pool Walk, which runs downstream adjacent to Babinda Creek. The trail is surrounded by a number of viewing platforms or lookouts from which visitors can view the series of huge granite rocks, boulders, and pools through which the stream flows. Bennett's group hiked all the way up to the Devil's Pool lookout. Here and there, danger signs are displayed warning the visitors to stay inside the safety rail which runs around the forward perimeter of the platforms. The images and words in the signs conveyed the existence of extreme danger that lies beyond the safety boundary, telling the visitors of how many people have already perished in that section of the narrow creek. Farley and John took notice of the signs, but they didn't hold their attention. The excited shrieks of the 5 or 6 children on the opposite side of the creek, jumping from high rocks down to the pool below, is more attention-grabbing. John later reported to the police that he felt nervous watching them. The rocks were really high, and there was no adult to supervise them. The group decided to venture beyond the lookout, going under and around the safety rail, heedless of the signs, and sat under a tree to watch the children for a while. Around them, locals and visitors alike were enjoying themselves, frolicking in the waters. Many children were fearless, and Soy saw a few of them jumping off waterfalls. The group considered swimming there, but John suggested that they go back to the car park for lunch and go to swim near the picnic area. They started heading back, but before they reached the walkway, they noticed a large pool with a massive rock to its left situated about 30 meters upstream of their position. The pool was calm, but under the rock, the water bubbles, foaming white like a spa bath. It looked inviting, not dangerous at all, and so the group decided to swim there. Unbeknownst to them, the location they selected is commonly known to the locals as the washing machine, a tidbit that they would have surely appreciated knowing beforehand. Unfortunately, no one was there to inform them. The group first sat down on the nearby garden rocks, just enjoying the breeze and observing the surroundings. Shortly after, Bennett and John went down to the water's edge, slowly exploring the pools. The waters in the Boulders are crystal clear, and visitors are always amazed with how the temperature always stays cool even in the middle of the blistering summer. But in the washing machine, though just as cold, the water is white, foaming and bubbling on the surface, hiding from sight whatever danger may lurk within. Farley followed Bennett to the water's edge. He sat dangling his feet in the location where the outflow of water from the larger, calm pool dropped into the washing machine. Bennett himself started venturing further, soon entering the foamy waters. He swam around in the calmer section of the washing machine. Farley was about to follow him in, but in the next second, he saw Bennett get pulled backwards towards the downstream end of the pool. It was as if he had been yanked down by an invisible hand. Bennett tried to grab onto an overhanging branch, but it snapped in half. He began to flounder underwater, his entire head submerged and only the fingers of an outstretched hand protruding above the surface. Farley ran to the edge of the pool closest to Bennett and stretched out his leg so his friend could grab hold. But it was too late. Everything happened in an instant. Bennett struggled once or twice before disappearing from view. Not losing hope, Farley found a 6-foot branch and stuck it down into the pool while yelling for help. Members of their group and the other visitors searched for Bennett in the nearby pools. They contacted emergency services, and while the others continued their search in vain, John and Soy went back to the picnic area to await the authorities. At exactly 8 minutes past 3 in the afternoon, Babinda police who received a notification of the emergency responded to the boulders. They immediately sent ambulances and police officers to the first viewing platform located about 20 meters from the incident. Farley told them what happened. The officers joined the search efforts while putting in a request for the immediate deployment of the swift water rescue team from Old Fire and Rescue Service.
It's well known for being a dangerous area. Every available resource that we have, including a contingent of police and emergency services and fire and rescue, swift water rescue have been put onto this.
They also requested help from the Babinda State Emergency Service. All units responded and were deployed in the efforts to find Bennett. From there, it was a grueling task for the rescuers to battle the ever-present rapids, putting themselves in danger in order to locate and rescue Bennett. It can pull people down into the tunnels of rocks and logs trapped at the bottom of the creek, keeping them under such pressure that a body can surface only when the current subsides. The spot where Bennett and his friends had been swimming was particularly dangerous. It was called the washing machine by locals for a reason, precisely because the water there went round and round like a whirlpool. The bubbles had no buoyancy, so anyone unfortunate enough to be pulled underwater had no hope of swimming back to the surface. And sure enough, hours have passed and the search turned up nothing. Eventually, the search and rescue became a mission to recover Bennett's body. Over the following 2 days, SES crews worked hard searching the banks of Babinda Creeks. At 11 a.m. on Tuesday, December 2nd, police officers who were part of the search and rescue team spotted what appeared to be a deceased body floating against a rock ledge in a deeper pool known as the Devil's Pool, about 150 meters downstream from where Bennett had last been seen. At 3 p.m. on the same day, police divers entered the pool, and with the assistance of the Queensland Fire Rescue Services Technical Rescue Unit and SES personnels, they were able to secure and extract the body of Bennett from the creek. An autopsy conducted by Dr. Paul Botterill on December 4th would confirm that the cause of death was due to drowning or immersion. Bennett was not the only fatality of the Devil's Pool. Since 1959, there have been approximately 20 deaths in Babinda Boulders. Many say the Devil's Pool is a cursed place, shrouded in mystery and haunted by a restless spirit from ancient times, hence its proverbial name. But the locals would argue that the boulder's origin did not come from evil. After all, the legend that haunts the waters at the boulders was built on a love story, however tragic it had been. The legend dates back to ancient times when the settlement was inhabited by the Yindinji tribe. Long before Western society arrived, the tribe was a peaceful people with a rich and vibrant culture. A young woman from this tribe, Ulana, was promised to their leader, a man named Warunu. Not long after their marriage, Ulana fell in love with Diga, a young warrior from another tribe. Diga gave in to her feelings and they soon became lovers. Aware that their adulterous behavior would incur the wrath of Warunu if he found out, the two decided to run away in the middle of the night. But as they ran to the wilderness, they were discovered by the tribal elders and hunted down. The young lovers fled until they reached Babinda Boulders, where their pursuers caught up with them. Desperate, Ulana plunged into the water and called for Diga to do the same. The young man jumped after her, but he drowned in the water and soon disappeared from her sight. Realizing he had perished, Ulana uttered a cry of anguish whose echo shattered the rocks and turned the pools around her into raging torrents. Up to the present day, the locals believe that Ulana is still haunting the boulders, pulling down young men in the depths of the water in search of her lost lover. While not many people will believe this legend, it does have a little credibility among locals. Of the 21 reported victims of the Devil's Pool since 1959 to date, 19 were strong young men. But how much of this can be blamed on the restless spirit of Ulana, and how much is the fault of the Boulders management for not ensuring public safety? Were the victims completely blameless, or was their carelessness one of the reasons why they met such tragic endings? On December 10, 2010, 2 years after the drowning of James Bennett, Kevin Priestley, a coroner at Cairns whose official duty is to look into the deaths that happened within his jurisdiction, conducted an inquest into the passing of the naval seaman. According to his report, the circumstances of the passing of James Bennett satisfied the definition of a reportable death, namely a violent or otherwise unnatural death under Section 8 of the Coroner's Act. This allowed him to conduct a thorough investigation, including a safety review of Babinda Boulders. Evidently, Bennett's passing raised an issue of public health and safety, namely the management of visitor safety at the boulders. The boulders is within the Boulders Reserve, and its ownership falls under the state of Queensland. However, its control and management lies fully in the grasp of Cairns Regional Council, whom the state vested in on trust for scenic purposes. The safety management established by the council includes interpretive signage erected in numerous strategic places within the boulders in full view of the visitors, infrastructure in the forms of walkway, and safe access to each of the vantage points, and barriers that divide the safe areas and designated swimming holes from the sections that are deemed dangerous to the public. The council assured that all signage complies with the relevant Australian standards and incorporates international language protocols. After Bennett's passing in 2008, the council also conducted a signage audit, surveying the location and content of signage, as well as the location and conditions of barriers such as railings at lookouts and viewing platforms. Coroner Priestley has concluded that the nature of the signage and condition of the barriers appear reasonable and appropriate to delineate safe and unsafe areas, as well as warning visitors of specific dangers beyond safe areas. However, while these safety measures seemed comprehensive, their effectiveness is sorely lacking as evidenced by the complete disregard the visitors are giving them. According to witnesses, visitors are ignoring the warning signs and readily accessing areas where dangers exist. John Twala and Adam Farley, friends of James Bennett, reported that while they did notice the signs when they reached the lookout at the Devil's Pool, they also saw the children playing beyond the safety boundary and jumping down from high rocks. Farley reported that he saw children jumping down from waterfalls, and backpackers were also present, while Soitwala did not make any specific mentions of noticing the warning signs at all. Upon interviewing the other visitors who were also present during the incident, Priestley found that their experience is similar to that of Bennett's group. 22-year-old Petzold Timo from Germany was with a group of friends. He said that when they arrived at the swimming holes where you were allowed to swim, there were already too many people in the water, so they looked for another place. In their quest to find a less crowded pool, they happened across a steel fence which they climbed over, after which they sat among nearby rocks and watched children jumping from a cliff into a deep pool of water. When questioned later, Timo said he remembered seeing some signs saying that the area beyond the fence is too dangerous and that there had been many people who had died swimming in the waters. Two members of his group also said the same thing. 22-year-old Joke Soren miners confirmed that they watched the children jumping from cliffs and that they went over the fence, but he did not recall seeing any warning signs until immediately after the incident occurred. Their 24-year-old friend Sven Ives Bergel recalled that the lookout over Devil's Pool was fenced off with about 2 or 3 signs, but he said that he did not recognize what the contents really meant and only remembered seeing the word danger. He reported seeing other people already over the fence and jumping off the rocks into the water. Wanting to see what they were doing, he also crossed over the boundaries. Sergeant Matheson, an investigating police officer, reported that there was a well-worn track beyond the safety rail, indicating that for several years, people have been climbing under and over the safety rail to walk to the Devil's Pool. While it can be said that the locals have a better understanding of the dangers of a particular swimming hole, their presence beyond the safety rails obviously tempted the outsiders, who were less familiar with the location and its dangers, to ignore or minimize the significance of the warnings. In light of these, it became evident that the efforts of the council to maintain safety through their signage was no longer effective, and more stringent measures must be implemented. This resulted in the no-go zone, which was recommended by the Infrastructure Services Committee in November 2010. The no-go zone means that all visitors, locals and foreigners alike, would no longer have access to the Devil's Pool area, but they can still enjoy swimming in the calmer pool near the car park. The creation of the no-go zone would allow local officers to take appropriate actions and implement an enforcement strategy, which should be more effective than the simple signage that the visitors can choose to ignore. On November 26, 2010, the Council accepted the recommendation of the committee with minor amendments, and the no-go zone was established. The committee erected signage informing visitors that access to the area was prohibited, and those that trespass will be liable to a fine. The Council also authorized media releases informing the general public of the no-go zone and reiterated that it would be enforced by Council officers. Priestley concluded his inquest by commending the Council for implementing the no-go zone. He acknowledged the difficulty in striking a balance between restricting the freedom of the local residents against the risk of harm to less informed and aware visitors. Finally, Priestley said that in light of numerous fatalities at this location, restricting access to the Calmer pool adjacent to the car park is a minimal restriction in return for a substantial reduction in risk to life of other visitors. While the inquest ended on a more positive and hopeful note, it didn't put a complete stop to the deaths in the Devil's Pool. In fact, 9 years after the inquest, the area around the fence still had clear tracks where people had been accessing the area. The Cairns Regional Council conducted a safety review earlier this year, triggered by the recent death occurring in Devil's Pool last December 2021, when a woman slipped and went underwater, failing to resurface. Her death is the fourth that happened after Bennett in 2008, making the boulder's total count of fatalities reach 21. The Cairns Regional Council is non-stop in their efforts in finding new ways to deter thrill-seeking people from venturing into the no-go zone, but so far, their efforts have been in vain. You will never get the right answer, but I think a lot of it is about challenges, State Emergency Service Area Controller Manfred Richter said. This was especially true these recent years where the lure of the ideal social media post is too tempting, and the need to get the proper photo far outweighs the risk you're taking against your life. Thanks for watching this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on your notification bell to stay updated on more similar videos. We would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share your comments below. Until next time.